I was listening to the Ezra Klein podcast the other day, and he's talking to a guest about AI generated online content. And he asks this question. He says, quote, should it matter if it's done by a human or an AI? Or is that some kind of sentimentality on my part? End quote. I think the question is a really important one, although I want to think about his question more broadly in a larger context. So I want to think more generally about AI generated books, short stories, opinion columns, podcasts, blogs, paintings, poems, TV, film, and frankly, just about any other expression of creativity. And the question then is, does it matter? When I'm saying the word matter in some ethically charged sense of the word matter, does it matter whether those things are AI generated? And if you think it does matter, is that really just at bottom a matter of foolish sentimentality? Now, I don't think the answer is yes. I think the answer is no. Let me be clear. I do think that it matters whether it's AI generated or human generated. And I don't think it's due to sentimentality, foolish or otherwise. And the short reason, or the sort of somewhat pithy, I'm not sure it's very pithy, but I'll try here. The short way of putting my explanation for why it matters is that it matters because the value of our engagements with creative works depends upon our being engaged with the human intentions, thoughts, and feelings that generated the work. So it's not just a matter of being engaged with the work as though it came from nowhere. Part and parcel of our engagement with creative work, and again, I'm talking about anything from podcasts to opinion columns to thoughtful blog posts to paintings and poems. Part of what it is to engage with that creative work is to engage with something that was created by and expresses human intentions, thoughts, and feelings. That, at any rate, is what my argument is going to be about today. All right. So, as usual, you like this podcast, obviously. So, please do me a favor. Go hit 5 stars, go leave it a written review, that sort of thing. Share it with your friends. If you got questions you want me to answer, issues you want me to address, people you want me to talk to, then please email me and let me know. em@readblackman.com, as in ethical machines at readblackman.com. Also, all of my arguments come from my Substack posts. So, you can also go check out readblackman.substack.com. Go subscribe, tell your friends, blah, 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 blah. All right, let's get to it. Okay, so again, our question is whether it should matter to us if we're engaging with content, engaging with creative work that was AI generated or not. And to start to think about this question, I want to back up a little bit and talk about relationships with people more generally. But here's where I'm really going to start. I'm going to start with a film. You've probably seen, maybe you've seen, I don't know, the movie The Truman Show. If you have, you'll recall that in it, Truman lives a blissful life. He's happily married, he spends quality time with his best friend, he has perfectly amicable neighbors and coworkers. But crucially, unbeknownst to him, he's living in a massive TV studio. Everyone he interacts with, his so called wife, friend, neighbors, they're all actors. Now, things begin to unravel for Truman when a spotlight comes crashing down from the sky, or what appears to Truman to be the sky. In fact, it's a kind of giant IMAX dome. And after that, eventually Truman ascertains the truth. Spoiler alert, he's rightfully appalled at the deception, and eventually he figures out how to get the hell out of there. Now, here's the thing. Before Truman discovered that his life was a lie, he was happy. He felt good about his wife and his marriage. He felt good about his friendship, and he felt good about his life more generally. He felt satisfied, joyful, and connected to his loved ones. And if you looked inside his head, so to speak, you'd find an easygoing, contented man. But the crucial question is not whether Truman is happy. The crucial question is whether Truman was living a good life before his discovery. Or more specifically, or a different or related question, did he have a good relationship with his wife and his best friend? And to these questions, was he living a good life prior to the discovery? Did he have good relationships with his wife and friend before the discovery? I think we have to say no. Despite what he believed and felt, in fact, he had a soulless marriage and an empty friendship. In fact, his ignorant bliss makes his life, frankly, all the more sadder, more pathetic. Now, maybe this is harsh, you think, but for what it's worth, I think that Truman agrees with this assessment, at least as portrayed in the movie, because what he discovered is that his life is a bad one. He didn't find out that he was unhappy all along in the way that someone wakes up and realizes, oh my God, I haven't been in love with my spouse for years now. What he realizes is not that he wasn't happy, but that his happiness was not well founded. And this same line of thought applies to his relationships, not just about his attitude towards his life. His wife treated him nicely, at least on the surface. Underneath, of course, we could see that her professions of love, her friendship, her advice were not genuinely expressions of love or friendship or an interest in his well being. She was acting, obviously. She was faking it. And that's what renders their relationship of little to no, if not negative value. And this is all true despite Truman's adoration of her. Now, look, I think the moral of the story is this, or at least one moral of the story is as follows. You can't look inside someone's head to see if their life is going well. You can't look inside the head of one person in a relationship and assess how well that relationship is going. How well we're doing in life and how well we're doing in love depends upon factors that are outside of ourselves and our perceptions. Now, I want to turn to talking about our engagement with creative works. We don't only have relationships with people, we also have relationships with creative works. Our engagements with them are not simply a matter of what's going on inside our heads either. We're engaging with a work that was created by someone. And look, that art isn't incidentally associated with the artist as if it's a flake of the artist's skin that we've come to admire. It's no accident that the art looks or sounds or feels the way that it does. The work, and again, I mean everything from podcasts to cartoons to fine art and TV, film, etc. All of these things express or manifest or flow from the intentions, thoughts, and feelings of whomever created it. And the intentions, thoughts, and feelings, they're not just connected to or explain why the person made the work, they also do something to ground the value of that creative work. So now I think you can begin to see where I'm going with all this. If Truman's wife's actions are fake, in the sense that they don't genuinely express the internal things they purport to express, that is to say, the intentions, thoughts, and feelings of a loving wife, then so too are AI generated creative works false or fake in the sense that they don't genuinely express the internal things they purport to express. That's because AI just doesn't have intentions, thoughts, and feelings to express in the first place. Now, look, of course, AI generated works, poems, blah, 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 they may well bring about wonderful thoughts and feelings inside of us, just as Truman's wife brought about wonderful things inside of him. But as I said, it's just not enough to tell us about the value of the relationship. And that's at least one way, I would say, I think it's the primary way, that it matters whether we're engaging with human or AI generated creative works, even if we can't feel the difference from the inside. So that's the overall position. Just as we have these relationships with people, and we need to understand more than just what's going on inside the head of one side of that relationship, so too with, I think, creative works. That's the thought anyway. Now, this is controversial. Obviously, I think there are probably a number of objections to this view, but I'm going to cover just two objections right now. The first objection is an attempt at a compromise position. That person says, the person who's objecting to my view says, look, I'll grant you that AI generated art, it has less value than if it actually expressed someone's intentions, thoughts, and feelings. But the feelings it generates, we're just going to stipulate, they can be so rich. The AI generated podcast or story or book or image or whatever it is, it's so powerful. And so, how could I say that there's no value in that experience? That's at least the thought that these works can be moving to us. And even though the AI generated content was, in the sense that I've articulated, fake, because it doesn't actually express anyone's intentions, thoughts, or feelings, it can move us in a way that's deeply valuable. I guess I want to say that in response to this, it's not that difficult of an objection. In fact, I think it concedes my main point. The main point being that it matters whether we're engaging with something created by a person or not. As far as this objection goes, it says that it's not the only thing that matters and that the experience isn't completely bereft of value if a person isn't involved. And I suppose in a way that's fine by me. I'll concede that point because all of that can be true, while it's also true that it matters whether a human created the work that we're engaging with. There's a certain kind of value, I would say deeper, more meaningful value that is had by virtue of engaging with work that is genuinely expressive of human intention, thoughts, and feelings. Okay, that's the first objection. Let's turn to the second one. The second objection is that my comparison of Truman's emotional engagement with his wife is a bad one. And the objector, I imagine, would say something like the following. Look, Truman was deceived into thinking that he was engaging with someone who is being sincere instead of a paid actor. And okay, fine, we'll say if the audience of AI generated creative work thinks it's done by a human, then the comparison with Truman's situation is apt. But for all those cases which it's clear that the person is enjoying the creative work and they know that it's AI generated, then the emotional engagement is, if you like, on the mattering up and up. So that's why the analogy with the Truman situation is a bad one. But there's a subtle distinction that I think this objection fails to make, and it's why I think the objection doesn't work. The distinction is between emotional engagement with a fake on the one hand, and on the other hand, being transparent or not about something's being a fake. So let me explain what I mean by this. Truman's wife's actions are fake because they don't express how she really feels. And similarly, the creative work that expresses human feelings are fake when it's AI generated because they're not the expressions of a creator's feelings. It's the fakeness of Truman's relationship with his wife that's the real problem. And similarly, it's the fakeness of a person's relationship with AI generated art that's the real problem. If you add deception on top of that, that just makes things worse. So think about it this way. Think about a fake Picasso. You could have an art dealer who's selling a fake Picasso, and he may be honest or dishonest about whether it's being fake. But whether he deceives or not, it's a fake. And our relationship with the artwork is thereby tainted, or at least it's less than ideal. So the deception is one thing. Whether you're being deceptive or honest about it being a fake is a completely different thing. And it's the fakeness of our relationships with Truman, with his wife, and the fakeness of our relationship with AI generated content in some cases that makes it, at a bare minimum, less than ideal, at least of lesser value, if perhaps not of any value at all. So, just some final thoughts. Look, of course, not every piece of creative content calls for the kind of engagement I've been talking about. Some, in fact, probably most kinds of AI generated content are merely informational or they're just for fun. But then again, our relationships with people are like that too. And those relationships are fine. So I'm not saying they're not fine. They're fine. They can be fun, but that's all they are. The deeper relationships with people and with art, however, the ones where we engage with the intentions, thoughts, and feelings of people, are the ones that make for valuable, deeper lives.